listen, we can worship in a public place today because of your sacrifice, so thank you. And thank you for all that you do. We love our military, and if we don't get to tell you enough, we just want to say thank you. In a world that's often ungrateful, we just want to say thank you. Before I go any further, there is. So, good morning. Good morning. It's good to see you guys this morning. Today, we've continuing our transformation series. This is week 6. And today we're going to talk about financial health. We've talked about spiritual health, relational health, emotional health. By the way, if you missed any of those messages, I encourage you, especially the ones on emotional and relational health. Some of that stuff I had never paid attention to in Scripture, and it's really, really some great stuff. So I want to encourage you to do that. And today we're going to talk about money, but I don't want you to be afraid. I'm going to give you a few caveats in just a minute. But here's the deal, okay? Many of us, even if we've been Christians for a long time, think about money the wrong way. And in this series, we're talking about being transformed by the renewing of our mind. Now, I'll be honest with you. We don't talk about money a lot. I probably should talk about it more than I do, but here's what I know. A lot of you have been in churches. Well, let me give you a few caveats, okay? And here's a few things that we have. Here's a few facts about money. Many people have been manipulated by ministers and have become skeptical. Does anybody know anybody in here that has a story? Do you know somebody who has a story? One of my favorites, or least favorites, is a story. This is a true story about a pastor who showed up at somebody's house and said, "I would like to see your W-2 to make sure you're tithing." I know, that's exactly my response. And so I want you to know something. I have no idea what anyone gives. I like it that way. And that's, this next thing is this. Some ministries misuse the money given to them. So invest wisely. There are ministers who waste money. There are ministers who have gold toilets and are driving Rolls Royces and buy a jet so they can fly. There was one in Orlando that bought a helicopter so he could fly 20 minutes. What would have been a 20-minute drive to his next location. So, that does happen, and it's easy for us to go, invest wisely. Look at where you're investing. Number 3, this is what I want you to know the most from me. Your stewardship of money is between you and God. But one of the things I'm going to talk about today a little bit, and I'm really not going to talk about giving as much as I'm going to just talk about knowing where your money goes. And I'll give you some facts that'll freak you out. Impulse buying and not budgeting are big dangers, especially around Christmas, just so you know. If you don't manage your money, it will manage you. It will stress you out, freak you out. Money's listed as one of the number 1 causes of divorce. I'll be honest with you. I think it's just a dashboard light of a bigger issue that's going on, but that's just there. Jesus spoke more about money than heaven or hell combined. Everybody likes it when I do a heaven one. The hell one, people not so much. All right. Half of all of his parables are about material possessions. And even relating the poor and the rich and how we treat the poor and how we treat the wealthy. And do we treat people who have money better than we treat others? Jesus talked a lot about those things. And then here's a kind of a wild one. 1 out of 6 verses in Matthew, Mark, and Luke are about money. And so it's not something we should never talk about. God's Word talks about it. But I want to encourage you today, because here's the deal. You're going to love this sermon today. You're going to love this message about money. It's going to be the first time in your life that you've heard a sermon on money that you left here and you went, I learned something I needed to know. I discovered something that, hey, you know what? I've been stressed out about money and I've been freaked out about money, and I'm realizing, you know what? God's kind of in charge of the universe and He can help me and provide for me. Now today we're going to be looking at Luke chapter 16. I'm not going to read the story to you, but let me tell you the story before we get into the point. So we're just going to camp on this slide for just a minute, and I'm going to tell you this story. Jesus, in Luke chapter 16, tells one of the most controversial stories in Scripture. There's been doctoral papers written on it. There's been pastors who fought about it. It's really an interesting story. And what Jesus does, He tells a story about a manager, or a guy who hires a manager. And he puts him in charge of his money, and one day he shows up and says to the guy, "You're going to get fired. You've not been a good manager." So the guy says, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And so what he does is he calls in people that owe money, And he says, how much do you owe? And one guy's like, oh, I owe a whole bunch of olive oil, which, by the way, if you know the price of olive oil, that's huge debt. He said, I owe 600 gallons of olive oil or something like that. And he says, hey, now you only owe half of that. So he halves all their debt. What's wild is, at the end of the story, Jesus said what he did was wise. Now, you got to realize the Pharisees who were listening to this story loved money. Religious leaders who love money are a dangerous combination. There's two really dangerous combinations with money: politicians and pastors who love money. Okay, you're in danger either way. And so Jesus tells them this story, and they don't even just get ticked off. They laugh at Jesus. They make fun of Jesus because of this story. And most of the verses that you have heard are the verses, and we're going to talk about them, that come at the end of this story. Most of them are what you have probably heard about money. So we're going to look at three big points today, and I hope they'll encourage you. I hope they'll inspire you, and I hope this will be the best sermon you have ever heard about money in your life. And I thought it was funny last night because we had more visitors than we've ever had, and as a pastor, I can see them going home and going, yep, I was right. Churches only talk about money. And I thought, but I hope that when you leave, you'll say, they talked about money, but it's something I really needed to know. And I'm even going to give you some examples from my life and some advice from my life to maybe help you with your money, okay? So here they are. Number one, don't waste your money because it's not yours. Jesus, in verse 1 and 2, said to his followers, once there was a rich man who had a manager take care of his business. The manager was accused of cheating him, so he called the manager in and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Now, Jesus is comparing, and he over and over compares God to the Father who makes us managers. You and I are managers, not only of creation, which he talked to Adam and Eve about, but you and I are managers of every resource we have. And you have only really two resources in life. Do you know what they are? Time and money. And you trade one for the other, right? You didn't go to work just because you felt like it, right? Most of you went because they were going to give you something at the end of the day, the week, the month, the year, or if you work construction, never. So, right? Some of you are like, yeah, how'd you know, Eric? That guy didn't pay me. Listen, God has called us to manage all the resources that he gives, but you and I have to recognize that they're his. If you have children, you have to recognize that your children are God's children. He's entrusted you. The friends that you have, God has entrusted you with friends. You have a stewardship. You have a responsibility to love and care for your friends. That car that you drive, that's God's car. Did you know that? We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But here's a question for you. Do you have any idea where your money goes? Do you have any idea where it goes? As Christians, we're not always wise with our money. And I love this. At the end of this passage, Jesus insults us. You ready to be insulted by Jesus? How many are ready to be insulted by Jesus? I'm excited. Yeah, okay, get ready. Here it comes. Luke 16, verse 8. Yet worldly people are more clever with their own kind than spiritual people are. You realize what Jesus said? As Christians or as believers, you're just not as smart as non-Christians. You're not as clever. You don't always pay attention. You don't always even notice what's going on. And here's what happens. Let me tell you what happens to Christians often. And there's a balance, okay? One is you have this group over here and sorry, you can't see me in the camera. You have this group over here and they love money, okay? So all they think about is money. Everything is about money. They look at money. I actually had a guy who does taxes who came to me. One day I said something about, giving or whatever. He's like, why would I want to give to the church when I can keep it all for myself? And I said to him, okay, that sounds good to me. If that's your philosophy, then great for you. Miserable person. Anyway, so I hope he doesn't watch. All right, but then the other extreme is this. Hey, everything's God, so I'm just not even going to worry about it. And yet, we go into Walmart, and we're leaving Walmart, and we went in for one thing, and we look in the cart, and there's 42 items, 38 of which we didn't need. By the way, I love what Peter Lord used to say, and since Peter Lord's, going to speak soon at the senior thing, one of the things he used to say, by the way, he doesn't like it when I make fun of him. So don't show him this. But one of the things that he would say is, what you buy today and is so precious to you, the day that you die, your kids will put it in a garage sale. And then it won't sell in the garage sale. They'll take it to Goodwill. But let me tell you something that I've learned because I've worked around Goodwill people. The Goodwill people haul a lot of your junk off to the trash. They can't even sell it, and they end up hauling your junk to the trash. And yet we spend our lives investing in all of this junk instead of saying, God, what do you want me to do? You ready for this one? Just a few years ago, over $10.3 billion was earned by the banks in just overdraft fees. 10.3 billion. Oh, but there's better news. You ready? We've gotten smarter, right? Because they started putting it on our statements, right? Remember the government forced them to put interest on our statements, and now they show you what your yearly, because it's going to make us smarter. You ready for what it is now, just a few years later? Instead of 10.3 billion, last year, $32 billion in overdraft and charges. $32 billion. What does that mean? It means we're not paying attention, or we go to the ATM to put a check in because we think it clears instantly, and then we discover if I had dropped it in the overnight box, it would have cleared in the morning, but since I put it in the ATM, they hold it for 3 days. I won't tell you how I figured that out. But let me just encourage you to use the drop box at night. Apparently my battery died. Either that or he just wanted to give me a prop. And it's just like a battery. You got to know when it's going to run out so you can replace it ahead of time. Otherwise, you don't have enough money and you get an overdraft fee. So $10.3 billion in overdraft fees, and then $32 billion this year. This year, each of the big banks in the first 3 months of this year made over $1 billion each. Wow. Because you bounced a check. Or because you put your ATM card and didn't realize that your check hadn't cleared yet. Because they held it a few extra days, even though the other bank is right across town and they can talk electronically. But they're holding it, and you think, oh, man. And I don't know if you've ever had those fees on fees on fees. They know how to get you, don't they? And so it's easy to get mad at the bank. Can I tell you something, though? If you don't make a mistake, they don't do that. It's easy to look at the banks and say, oh, those evil, greedy banks. No. They know that we're not smart. So what I'm telling you today, if you don't hear anything else, is be smart. No servant, Luke 16 says, can serve two masters. The servant will hate the one master and love the other, or follow the one master and refuse to follow the other. You can't serve both God and worldly riches. So here's the question. Your money for you is a test. Are you passing? Are you really trusting God and saying, God, I know you provide. I know you'll take care of me. Or do you just say, oh, it's everything. By the way, you don't have to be rich to be greedy. Did you know that? I know a lot of really poor, greedy people that when they see somebody else have something, they say, oh, I wish I had that. Or I deserve that. Or I should have that. Or I should want that. I remember going to Kentucky, and this is way back in the 80s. And all of these people had trailers, and they had big satellite dishes. And I said, how can these people who can't afford anything have a satellite dish? Well, they figured out they could sell the mineral rights under their land, and they would give them a satellite dish. They traded an eternity of whatever minerals underground for a temporary satellite dish, which, by the way, doesn't even work anymore at this point. And now their children and their grandchildren could have a future of investment, but instead they traded the eternal or the long-lasting for the temporary. What Jesus is trying to remind us of is life is not about what you have right now. It's about investing in eternity. But here, listen, some of us stress about money all the time. I'm going to give you one thing that will help you to not stress so much. Okay? You go out and you get a car. And what you need to say is, you know what, God, I'm your manager. What kind of car should I get? Now, by the way, that's an individual question. That's not for the pastor to come and tell you, you shouldn't have bought that, right? Okay, so that's between you and the Lord. God, what kind of car I get? Then you're driving and somebody rams into your car. And here's what you should say. God, somebody wrecked your car. God, somebody wrecked your car. What do you want me to do? When you get out of bed in the morning, you should say, God, thank you for this bed. When you turn on your air conditioner, which is still 90 degrees. I just talked to my friend in North Carolina. They said it has not risen above 60 where they're at. And I said, can you come visit and just, open your doors when you get down here? I think it'll cool it off. 90 degrees. So you turn down the air, and here's what you say. God, thank you for air conditioning. God, thank you that you gave me this house. God, thank you that you gave me these children. God, thank you that you gave me this job. Thank you for the job I had and I just got fired from. God, thank you, right? If everything's His, you have to say, God, thank you for what you've given me. And you know what happens? You begin to take the pressure off. And the other thing is you become a better manager. Because when you see somebody with a need, you say, God, do you want me to fulfill that need or do I need to wait? Do they need to learn? Sometimes people need to learn from struggling. You know that? If you always give everybody, if I give my kids everything they want all the time, guess what I just raised? A bunch of spoiled brat kids, right? But if I make them earn it, if I make them work for it. So let's say God's giving you a lawnmower and you're mowing your grass. You should look around and go, God, you know what? I noticed my one neighbor has been sick. Should I go mow their grass? God, you've given me more vegetables than I need. God, should I give some to my neighbor? God, you've done this in my life. How do you want me to use what you've given? But too often we're so busy just looking at ourselves. And you know what's happening to us? Not only are we getting stressed out, but we're miserable. God created you to connect with other people and to give and to be a blessing. Do you know why we do shoe boxes? Because it's a wonderful thing to learn to give. And here's the other thing. Did you know they put gospel tracts that talk about Jesus in those boxes? And those kids, wherever they are in the world, open a little gift. Something that your kids would probably go, which is sad, right? And they are excited and they're ecstatic and they open those boxes and then they also learn about the love of God for them. One of the reasons God gave you resources is also to go out of your way to be a blessing, to bless other people. Now, a lot of people respect Dave Ramsey as a financial guru, and he does have some great teaching. And so here's one sentence from him. Remember, no one has ever become, one paragraph, no one has ever become poor by giving. Tithing was created for our benefit. It's to teach us how to keep God first in our lives and how to be unselfish people. Unselfish people make better husbands, wives, friends, relatives, employees, employers. God is trying to teach us how to prosper over time. I have met some miserable rich people over the years because all they care about is themselves and their money. And I've met some wonderful poor people over the years who use whatever God gives them to bless other people. If they've got 2 pairs of shoes, they'll give 1 pair of shoes to somebody else to help them out. And yet they're blessed. It's not about the amount of money you have. It's about, God, this is yours. How do you want me to use it? Number 2, not only do we not waste it because it's not ours, don't trust money because it doesn't satisfy. Money never satisfies. There's never enough. If you put your trust in anything but God's love, it won't last. If you put your trust in how good looking you are, one day you're not going to look as good as you look now. It's just going to happen. It's just going to happen. One day you won't be as healthy as you are now if you put your trust in your health. One day, you're not going to have the finances maybe that you have. Everything can be taken away in a moment. One day that car that you think will never break down. Yeah, you know about that, don't you? The only thing in life that you really can't lose is God's love for you. And any investment you make in eternity, any investment you make in somebody else that makes a difference in their lives, and especially in eternity. In Luke 16, so the manager comes to the guy and says, give me a report of what you've done with my money because you can't be my manager any longer. And I love this next phrase. The manager thought to himself, what will I do since my master's taking my job away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig ditches and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job, people, welcome me into their homes. So here's what he's saying to them. Hey, you've been wasteful. What have you done? You don't even know. He says, what have you done with my money? And the manager can't even answer him. It's like, what have you done with my money? I don't know. So here's your question. What have you done with the money God's given you? Do you have any idea? Do you have overdraft fees because you looked at your bank account and you said, there's money in there, I can go do something, not realizing that you had already written a check somewhere else? And I know we've all done that. Can I give you a couple of practical tips? Make a budget. Well, Eric, I don't know where to start. Okay, on Google, write budget. Neil, that's B-U-D. There's a D in it. It's not hillbilly budget. B-U-G-E-T, budget. It is spelled like budget, isn't it? All right, so that was new. So do that. Let me tell you something else. Can I tell you something? I am terrible about paper and pencil budget. Now, I do it, and I get in the mood once a year about, and usually if I'm doing a sermon, I'm like, I guess I need to do that. But let me tell you how I keep my budget, okay? I have Quicken. I don't know if you have Quicken. I don't know what you have. Some of you have bank stuff online. I do most of my stuff online. I write very few checks. A checkbook nowadays, if they give me a thing of checks, it lasts years for me. If you're under 25 years old, they said you may not even own a checkbook. All right? So let me tell you what I do. I get online, and not only do I put the bills coming up. Now a lot of times I have my bank send the bills. I don't know if you do that yet, but that's the way I do it. Even if you're writing checks, you can put what bills are coming up and schedule it for every month. So every month I know I'm going to get a huge bill from the city of Titusville for water and sewer, because the city of Titusville loves to sell cocoa water to us for double the price. Just so you know. Did you know Titusville buys water from cocoa? You probably didn't know that. Those of you who live in Port St. John, you lucky people. Anyway, so people in Port St. John, yeah, my bill was $30 for 3 months, and then I buried them in the backyard. Anyway, so our bill, our water bill is about $180 a month, water and sewer. Welcome to Titusville. So, and a bunch of kids and teenagers. So what do? So in my budget, I've got extraordinary water bill as a line item, and I put that in, and it knows months ahead. It tells me that bill's coming, so that when I look at my checkbook and when I look on my Quicken, I don't just say, oh look, I got money in the bank today, I can go and do something. It actually is showing me what's coming up, so that I know, oh, I got money in the bank today, but a week from now it's not looking good. That's when that water bill's due, or that's when that tax is due, or that's when that quarterly payment to the life insurance is due, so that if I die tomorrow, my kids will eat. Well, they'll eat good. I got good insurance, right? So I do that ahead of time. Why? So I can look ahead. If you don't have a budget, you have no idea what's coming up. All of your bills. Listen, I owe Orlando Regional Medical Center more than I should, right? Because they tried to kill me a couple of years ago and brought me back to life, and now I owe them all kind of money. So that's a payment every month. So I have it in there, scheduled months. I can look 3 months ahead and tell you what my payments are, what my income will be, all that stuff. Now, does that mean I don't get surprises? Surprise! No, I get surprises. But did you know your car breaking down is not a surprise? No, Eric, it is. I didn't plan it. Plan it. Put a little money aside for your car to break down. Budget. Get a budget. Begin to do that, because, listen, God has made you a manager. I would love it if you didn't have to pay any money in fees this year. Wouldn't it be better to send a box of toys to a kid overseas than to give the bank another 20, 30, 50 bucks in fees this year? So let's start to look at our lives and go, God, help me to budget so that I don't waste money sending it to these corporate people, and instead I'm sending it to some child overseas who has a need, who needs to know about Christ. Ecclesiastes 5 says it this way: whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. Number 3, so don't waste because it's not yours. Don't trust because it won't satisfy. Number 3, your spending identifies what you value. Now, you're not going to like that point, but it's true. If you want to know about your life, all you have to do is look at your calendar and look at your spending. You will spend money on the things you care about. You will spend time on the things you care about. When neither of those things happen, don't pretend, oh no, I really do care. No, you don't. If you spend more money in cable TV than you do for food for your children, then you're a little out of balance. So look at your checkbook. And you're like, I don't have a checkbook. Okay, then look online and say, where have I been spending money? Listen, if you look at my Publix receipt, you can tell what I love. Planters peanuts, bacon. There is not a sweet potato ever on that list. Ever. There is never a sweet potato. And you're like, Eric, you don't like sweet potatoes? No. And if you look at my receipts, you can tell I do not like they do not go in the cart. If my kids say, Dad, we'd like sweet potatoes for dinner, I go, you better go visit somebody. What do you care about? What do you love? It's identified in your checkbook. It's identified on that online thing. It's identified what do you go out of your way for? What do you sacrifice for? That's really what you love, is what you sacrifice for. What do you really love? The Pharisees who loved money were listening to all these things and made fun of Jesus. By the way, never make fun of Jesus. That's just a little tip there for you. That's extra. He said to them, you make yourselves look good in front of people, but God knows where your hearts are. What's important to people is hateful in God's sight. See, the Pharisees would come into church, and they had like a big box that was made of brass, and they would come in, and when they gave their offering, they would actually get the smallest coins they could find and announce that they were getting ready to give. And they would put them in one by one. In one verse, it talks about blowing trumpets. Well, there's a debate about what that means, but the thing they put money into was trumpet-shaped, and so if you were really good, you could throw it in there and make a lot of noise so that everybody noticed, ooh, look how much they gave. If you remember the story, Jesus points out, after these Pharisees went in and did that, Jesus points out the widow who just put a couple pennies in there, and he said she gave more than they did. Remember that story? Because what Jesus said is, hey, it's about the heart. It's not about how much, it's about the commitment. It's not about how much you gave. It's about, did you say, God, you're first in everything. What do you want me to give? What do you want me to do? Or did you just say, it's my money and I'll do what I want? The Pharisees, Jesus said to them, they were tithing. And the one guy said, oh, I tithe. I give 10% even of my spices. Like, he went home, if he bought oregano, he would take 10% of his oregano and bring it to church. This is weird. Anyway, but that's really, and so he was proud, and Jesus said, you know what? You shouldn't quit doing that, which, by the way, Jesus could have said, you should quit doing that. What are you doing that for? Jesus said, you should keep doing that, but don't forget love. Don't forget the more important thing of loving people. So when you give, do you give out of a heart of love? Or do you get out of a heart of just trying to make yourself feel good? Or just trying to make yourself feel better? Listen, Paul later on says, don't give out of compulsion. Don't let somebody manipulate you into giving. Give because you say, God, how do you want me to give? And where is there a need? And invest in eternity. Invest in things that last. In Luke 16, the story ends this way. I tell you, make friends for yourself using worldly riches, so when those riches are gone, you'll be welcomed, listen to this, in the homes that'll continue forever. Jesus is talking about heaven here. Whoever can be trusted with little can be trusted with a lot. So if you're not good with $1,000, don't think if you win the lottery, you'll be good at it. I'm telling you right now, if you are not good with $1,000, you will not be good at $1 million. Plenty of lottery winners have lost millions and millions of dollars. Be faithful with the $1,000 or the $100 or the $10 that God gave you. Whoever can be trusted with little can be trusted with a lot. Whoever is dishonest with little will be dishonest with a lot. If you can't be trusted with worldly riches, then who will trust you with true riches? If you can't be trusted with things that belong to someone else, who will give you things of your own? God is saying, I give you money to test. Can you be faithful? And when you're faithful, He blesses you. It's not always financial. He doesn't always make you richer. You know, every once in a while somebody will say, now if you give money here, then God's going to plant a seed in your life, and that seed will grow and you'll be rich. Hey, listen, God will always bless you, absolutely, but it's not always financial. If you give $20 today, I promise when you leave, you'll have $20 less than when you walked in, right? But when you give for the right reasons, God blesses you 1,000 other ways. And He does, and He always takes care of us. It's about eternity. A few years ago when we were at camp, I was rubbing nickels together to make ends meet. We were at camp with the kids, and they got up and they talked about Compassion International. And my kids said, we'd like to go and look at adopting one of the kids. And so we went and they found a thing of a girl in India named Yugladish. This is about almost 3 years ago now. And I looked at my kids, 3 of my kids, and I said to them, now listen, we go out to eat La Bamba once a month. It's called La Marimba or something now. And I said, it costs about $30 because I don't even let the kids get drinks. I'm one of those dads, right? None of those $3 drinks for you. I'll buy you a 2-liter bottle on the way home, okay? So So no drinks, right? So about $30. I said, we do that once a month. I said, that's our one out to eat a month. I said, if you want to sponsor somebody, we've got to give up something, and that's what we'll have to give up. I was hoping my kids, I kind of was honestly hoping my kids, oh man, I'm going to have to cook dinner if they don't. And they all said, no, we want to do that. So for several years, they gave up their one out to eat a month in order to sponsor this young lady, Yuglidish, over in India, some kid they've never met. We just got a letter from her just recently. She writes letters back and forth, and her parents thank us for giving. They have a school there. She's learning about the Bible. They give them clean water and food. And my kid said, I care more about the eternal than eating out once a month. That's a big deal. What do you really care about? Does it show up in the way that you act towards other people? Does it show up in unselfishness? Or are you selfish and self-centered about life? Is your money about you, or is it about saying, God, you've given me this trust. How do you want me to use it? Is your time about you, or do you say, God, you've given me this time. How do you want me to use it? And go out of your way to say, God, this is what you've given me. What do you want me to do with it? That's what stewardship is all about. Not just money, time, every resource God's given you. God, this is yours. I want to please you. What do you want me to do? My prayer for you and my prayer for me is that we would be good managers. That we budget. That we'd go out of our way to say, God, I'm going to make you first in everything that I do. If you're here today and you've never given your life to Christ, you can get saved even in a budget sermon. And so maybe today you know what, Eric? I know about Jesus, but I've never surrendered my life to Him. I've been running my own life my way. I think I'm the manager. I'm not doing a very good job. And maybe today you'd say, God, I want to give you my life. I'd love to talk to you after the service about what that means. Maybe you're here today and budgeting's tough. And maybe you don't trust God, or you've really fallen down in that. Maybe it's time to say, God, I really need you. Would you help me to trust you? Did something just happen with the screen?